Hey folks, just jumping on here real quick to share a little AI workflow that I've been working on with a client. And it's something wanted to do in my career for a number of years, and it's always been so difficult to do, but with AI, it's now very much possible. So essentially the core problem is trying to create win-loss reports after a deal is either won or lost. So if you're in the B2B business, we use Salesforce and using that for deal management oftentimes. And when you win or lose a deal, there's lots and lots of important information that we want to get out and analyze as a sales team, from a marketing perspective, from product and engineering to customer success. Throughout the organization, we want to understand better why we won a deal and why we lost a deal and how we can improve it. So what we did with this application here, I'm going to share a little workflow here real quick. That's going to give us some details. Here we go. That's going to give us some details in terms of how the actual workflow works. So this is for a client. I've de-anonymized everything, so there's no information here that's going to be confidential to share. But we basically are using Salesforce. They pipe their information into Snowflake, which is a third-party database. And then they use Gong for call recordings and then Slack for deal discussions. And so all of that information is piped into a Claude application that we've created, a Claude code application that we've created. And it analyzes all of that information and basically creates a win-loss report. So this is a branded Word reports, Microsoft Word report. And they use the MEDDPICC process. You might have another sort of sales methodology you're using, and then goes through a 13-point checklist, just trying to see different aspects of the deal. And then it actually creates that report. It posts it on SharePoint. It sends out a Slack message and also links to it in the Salesforce report or in the Salesforce opportunity itself. So let's take a look at an example report here real quick. So this one, again, the company is completely made up of Toontown management for CGI rendering. So de-anonymize the information, but it'll kind of get the point across. So all of that information synthesized, and it creates a pretty detailed report that's super helpful for all the teams involved. So first we start with an executive summary, what's sort of the core outcomes and why do we win or lose this deal, any competitors that are listed in there. Creates a nice little table of contents so you can jump through the report very easily. Provides a snapshot of the deal overview, so it's high level sort of deal details that are included, and deal snapshot. So, which is super helpful just to have the timeline of how the deal go down. What was the overall, month by month, week by week key milestones that we hit? What are some of the outcomes? So this is a specific thing that the client wanted to do, which is take certain fields in Salesforce that they use, pull them out directly and not modify them at all so that we can see exactly how the reps have answered and provided some of the information. So that's super handy. And then if there's any competitors that are mentioned or involved, then in the transcripts, then it's pulling that information and understanding, why did we win? Why did we lose? Were there any features that came out? It takes a look at the pricing schedule and the pricing that was quoted in the application, pulls that through so that we can quickly see, what was the actual deal that was priced, and if there's feedback on the price that occurred in any of the Gong recordings. It also does a little bit of an analysis on how did we meet. Was this a client that met our ICP? Are we selling outside of who we should be selling to? Does a quick analysis there, and then one that's super helpful is just understanding who was all involved in the buying committee and making this decision-making process. So this is super helpful for marketing teams. So who was involved? What were their titles? What were their roles? What was their overall sentiment? And when did they engage? So if you're taking over from a customer success perspective, you know who you're dealing with and what their sentiment is. Lots of detail and context that's provided there. And then they use the MEDDPICC process, slightly modified a little bit. And so here it takes both. If you've got fields that were used in each of the deals, it pulls from there. But if not, it's basically extrapolating what those fields should include for each of those different aspects of the MEDDPICC process. So super helpful just to be able to see that, and gives it an overall score, which is great from a feedback perspective to understand why we lost or won this deal. And then from a debrief perspective, it does a little bit of, what should we do next if there's things that we can do to recover the deal. In this case, we won the deal, so it's not as much of an issue. And then key aspects that jump out in any of the recordings themselves, so communications highlights. And then one thing that's super helpful is recommendations. So this is great on any closed loss deals to understand what could we have done better to try to salvage this deal? What could we have done to increase the price, maybe upsold to another product? So this is great coaching and feedback for the reps and anybody else involved. And so all of these aspects come together in the report. And then we also have a data hygiene aspect. So did we use Salesforce opportunities? Did we create accounts of contacts? Did we create tasks? In this case, we didn't. Other aspects that are included directly in the application. So this becomes a way for us to get better in terms of data on each deal. And then because the way this report works is as soon as the deal closes, within 15 minutes of the deal closing, this process kicks off automatically. It generates the report in about 30 minutes. So not right away, but almost immediately after a deal is closed, we start to have a feedback loop to improve how we're actually doing with our deals. So wanted to share this application and use of AI because I think it's a super important thing. Is if you've got any amount of deal volume, this type of analysis traditionally has been so difficult to do. Product marketing teams have tried to go through this. It takes hours and hours and hours, and this synthesizes it in a matter of minutes completely autonomously and starts to get some of the feedback from directly from the sales front lines out to the rest of the organization. So super cool to be able to build these types of applications and workflows. So if you're interested in learning more, hit me up and we'll chat. All right, thanks a lot. It's good chatting with everybody and seeing everyone. Thanks again. Bye.